Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Make sure we address everything, give everybody time and opportunity. Thank you guys all for coming, taking the time to come down and meet. First thing we want to start with is, we don't often get the chance to do this, but let's hear about the amazing things that are going on in your classrooms and in your schools. We never get a chance to do that. So I want to hear some celebrations. I know lots of schools have been signing up for augmented reality, the Pioneer program. I've been to a couple of them. That's pretty cool. That's pretty amazing. So hopefully you had a chance to do that. Olga, you?
Our classroom teachers have been doing Apple Classroom thanks to Curtis, and they think it is fabulous. The giddiness they feel when they can plus kid out is amazing.
It's a powerful button.
There is a power in that.
So right now we're piloting Apple Classroom for iPads at Redstone, just to kind of see what the level of effort is to push that out and things like that. But it's a classroom management system for managing your iPad. So you can push out a link that launches on all their iPads. You can lock them out and get their attention, some of those types of things. So Curtis has been working really hard helping out with that. So I appreciate Curtis's effort with that, because it's kind of some new, I wouldn't quite say beta, but it's kind of not fully baked 100%. It's getting better.
Yeah, I've been more of a roadblock than anything else. We tried to see if we could manage the courses and classes, and ultimately we don't have the bandwidth personnel to do that. So ad hoc exists. We're a little frightened of some of the pieces and what we needed to change on the JSS side, but it was just, since we're not doing shared iPad, we don't need this profile. We can kind of do whatever we want. But in the end, ad hoc is there. There's some stuff that's coming throughout the MDM that you can lock down with Bluetooth, so the kids can turn off Bluetooth and get out of the classroom and do other things. But yeah, it's thanks to Olga for testing it out. It just requires it to be deployed to a teacher iPad, not all the iPads. It requires iOS 10.3 or greater, maybe just 10.3, but that's the kind of cutoff point. So you can't be using it on either either iPad, the administrative one, or the student iPad can't be a 9.3.5 or less.
So when we get ready to make this available to everyone else, we'll have some documentation out there on what systems you need in place and things like that. And the ad hoc classroom is just like you use with Seesaw and lots of other things. You give your kids a code, they type in the code, and now they've joined the class. So it makes it pretty simple for your kids to get in those classes, and it works well if you have kids that are going to a different teacher for science that they are for math and things like that. It will still completely work just fine, which is pretty slick opportunity. So we'll get that documented here soon. What are some other celebrations, some cool stuff you guys have going on out there? Come on, really, nobody? Your schools are not doing anything cool? Anyone? Yes.
I'll brag about Dorado. Jerry's not here, but she made a topography table using an old Dell desktop. She got funds to put in a high-speed graphics card. The custodian built a stand. They used an old Epson projector and an Xbox 360, and now they have something they can use to actually create mountains and rivers. And so if you ever have a chance, I've got pictures I can send you too.
And that's the table with the sand in it, right?
Right.
So it's a pretty impressive table if you've ever seen them, because as you drag out from the sand, the topography that's projected on top of it changes, and you can hold your hand over it to make it rain, to create rivers and lakes and stuff like that. And it's really cool to help kids understand in a very dynamic, hands-on fashion topographic maps and mountains and rivers and all that kind of stuff, and give them something cool to play with. It's in a lot of different museums and stuff, but there are easy ways to cobble together some equipment. The plans are all out there on the interwebs, and you can check that out. So cool, thanks for sharing that. What else is cool going on besides survival? Yes.
I'm just excited our PTO is going to fund like $500 for every classroom teacher to buy robotics in summer classroom.
That's awesome. $500 for every classroom teacher? That's huge. Very cool. That'll really help infuse the computer science out there. Very cool. Love it. Anything else cool? No? As someone said the other day, I was at a principal's meeting. They refer to February as the armpit of the school year. This is just that doldrum time of year, and it's tough. So cool. Well, if you have other celebrations, feel free to chime in. We're going to continue on. So we'll do some quick introductions again because we do have a new member of our team to introduce. So again, I'm Mark Blair, the Director of School Technology and also the STIP for the Parker area. I've got Brian Berner over here, who's the STIP for Highlands Ranch, and then Corey Papastathis, STIP for Castle Rock. Evan over here is the Device Engineering Manager. Bobby is not here today. I've got Curtis over here as well. Where's Eric? There's Eric. Eric's in the back over here. I've got Joel up here front and center in the middle. Love it. Thanks for being the volunteer, buddy. Appreciate it. We have Cindy over here, Highlands Ranch support. Where's Josh? I know Josh was here earlier. There's Josh. Josh is kind of admin and Castle Rock support as well. Reed is over here. He is our Parker support. Drew's out this week, isn't he? He's moving. And the newest member of our team is Jake Bott right over here. Yes. Big round of applause for Jake. Jake is one of our former DCSD students. He worked up Mountain View, Northeast, Cimarron, and Legend, right? Sagewood. Yeah. Sagewood. So yeah, Jake is the newest member for our team. He joined us from Best Buy and has a lot of great technology experience. So we're getting him. He's jumped in and gotten up to speed, passed some of the Apple tests already, and we're starting to hand some more opportunities to him, and he's taking them on willingly. So. Got a nice, well-rounded team. So yes, thank you. Yeah. And we have our special guest appearance from those of you that may not know, Nick Morgan, who is our network manager. You want to come up here because the microphone's up here, Nick. So I got to have you front and center, brother.
Sounds good.
So Nick wanted to have some FaceTime with everybody.
Trying to get some FaceTime with the network team in front of you folks. I think it'll be a positive move forward for everybody. So biggest thing I wanted to highlight as we come into the second half of the year is some of the teachers find those phones in their classrooms a nuisance. We really need to have those phones plugged in. So I think last year at the end of the year, we had about 6 of our phone fleet unplugged at the end of the year. That's 1,000 phones. So when I say 6, we got 6,000 phones out there, 1/6 of that out. It's a lot of phones that we start to freak out about that, oh my gosh, what happened to them? Kind of along those same lines is help us spread the word. Due to the programming on the phones, we really need a change ticket if the phone moves from classroom to classroom. We've got that plugged in specifically with a room number, and that room number is if that phone dials 911, Paul Kleinhan's team on the security side gets an email that says 911 was called from this room at this school. If that phone moves and it's no longer in room 100, but it's in room 200, you can see where we might get a little confused there on that. So we're trying to get that communication out to all the right folk. And if those phones move without us knowing, we can cause some mass chaos. Along those lines, the phones and their phone numbers are tied to the building. So at the end of the year, as we start having some of those staff changes, we really need to know, or we would really like for those phones to stay in the building and not travel with people who are traveling to a new site. We're trying to keep that tied to the site and the department. Phone numbers cannot travel with staff members either. So if you're moving to a new location, your phone number is going to change. And again, this is tying back into that 911 support that we've been building into the new phone system. And then last but not least, not just phone related, but network related, if my team or this team doesn't know about any of your issues, we can't fix those issues. So please, please, please send us information. The more we know, the better we can help. That's all I got.
Cool. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right. So rotation update. I'm sure most of you are unfortunately aware that we will not have a district rotation this year. This was a decision that was not made by IT. We are obviously clearly in favor of supplying technology out there, not just so that we have jobs to help you, but because we realize the value out there. I think most people realize the value. Earlier in the year, the SACs and parent community were surveyed out of 7 budget categories to prioritize those budget categories. They presented that information to the DAC, who presented it to the board as a community recommendation of here's our budget categories and how we prioritize them. Technology was 6 out of 7, right above transportation. Shocking information to me. I was quite floored at that, but that's the feedback that the community gave to the board. And so that is the main reason we are not going to have a technology rotation this year. So it's pretty unfortunate. We know it's going to be tough. It's going to be very challenging for a lot of you with aging equipment and things like that. We're trying to figure out strategies and things like that so that we can help support and keep things alive. Eric, Joel, we have an intern, Sam, working in the repair shop as well, that are trying to repair and Frankenstein together as much technology as we can to keep it alive. Those Samsung 3s are barely hanging on, but they're still hanging on. So we're going to continue to try and support that as much as we possibly can to get through this rough patch. As Aaron Kane told the principals a couple weeks ago, technology rotation money is a capital expense. Capital expenses are lumped in with the bond, not the mill levy override, but the bond. If the bond does pass in November, we could potentially see relief on that sooner than the mill levy override, because mill levy override, you have to wait until the property taxes are paid and things like that before that money starts coming into the district. Bond happens a little bit quicker. So it's one of those things that we might be able to see some relief next year, but we don't have any guarantee. So I just wanted to share that information with you. So any questions about rotation? Yeah.
We have money left from the last rotation. We have to spend it
No.
still in April?
No. That is a great question. So we've worked out with the budget office that your rotation dollars now, because they sit in your school budgets, will be rolled over into next year. So if you have money left over in your rotation budget for this school year, you do not have to spend it by the end of the school year. If you want to hold on to it to carry you into next year to cover anything that you need to for next year, go for it. That money will be there. So great question. Other questions? Nope. All right. Mr. Cup, come on down. Time to talk about paper cut.
Everybody loves it free, right?
That's right.
All right, everybody knows I love to talk in front of people, so this will be real quick. I'm going to say the same thing I've said the last couple times. We are making progress. I know all you guys are not seeing it out there, but we do have some sites that we've switched over, more than one now. We want to say a big thank you to Miss Christine Green for letting us test on her site. That was the first school site that we went to, and it was an exciting day. We had a few gremlins. We had a few things we need to get figured out, and I'll give huge props to Joel for actually being able to figure out what was going on, which I could not do. So, big thanks to Joel for figuring it out. I do think we have most of the things sorted. Right now, we're on a temporary hold because the server that is housing all of the stuff for paper cut is getting ready to be shut down, and we're moving everything to a different server. So we didn't want to start loading the old location up before we made the move. Why move more things than we have to? So we've been on hold for a couple of weeks. That move is going to happen next week. By the end of next week, I'm very hopeful to have a schedule out of when we're going to be moving forward with this. So you guys should be seeing some communication from me soon. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot of other updates, except what I've said before is it is coming soon. We are working on it. The reason we're being so slow is we're trying to make this as least painful as possible. We don't want to roll out something that's going to be bad and make for a bad day or bad few days at your site. So I think we've got most of that stuff sorted out. Be looking for some communication soon. And thank you again for letting us work at your site.
They were amazing, actually. They're awesome. The staff at Sage Canyon was so grateful for you guys. They've been patient, and it's not 100% ironed out, but it's
Yeah, we're real close.
Thank you
Real
guys
close.
so much
Absolutely.
for, coming out with so many times.
Yeah. Does anybody have any specific questions?
Can you explain a little bit about paper cut?
So what PaperCut is we're currently use a print management solution called Equitrack, and it is where when you select the printer for the big Konicas on your machine, it is where that job goes and then gets sent back to the actual printer queue where you can pick it up from the other queues. It is just a different set of software that's going to give us a lot more information to be able to see what we're actually printing. Right now, we don't have a great picture of who's doing what.
We're not doing this as a design for us to be the print police and to tell you what you can and cannot do. We're doing this so you can have the information to properly manage how printing works best for your particular location. I guarantee you that Debbie Blair's solution is not going to be the same as Janelle's. It's going to be different site to site, but hopefully this solution will give you the information that we have been lacking so you can make the proper decisions on how you're going to set up printing for your site. Obviously, the Konica Minoltas are the most efficient, and that's the direction that we should hopefully go. But again, we're going to leave that up to you. But that is what it is, and that's why we're moving this direction.
In future phases of this tool versus Equitrack, with PaperCut, we'll be able to enable Chrome and iPad printing as well. And then farther downstream from that is we will be able to wrap in all of your HP printers in your building as well. So you will be able to see your complete footprint as a building, because we know oftentimes some people send the job of 200 pages over to the HP so they don't get tracked on the Konica Minolta. We understand that's happening. We want to be able to give you guys all the information that we can. But we got to get through this first phase first, get it all rolled out, and then we can start peeling back those next phases to enable the capabilities for you guys. But the team has been working really hard and ironing out the kinks, and we get some challenges that we find out when we go to a building and we have nurses and who else? We have preschool folks and base camp and stuff that their computers aren't assigned to your building, so they didn't get the PaperCut driver. So now we got to put it on there because they're trying to print to your device that now is a different device and stuff. So we're working through those layers and trying to make it more efficient, like Eric said, as seamless as possible. But we're close.
Yep. We've got signage created. We've got some stickers to actually put on the printers. That way you'll know that this is a PaperCut machine. Big old sticker about the size of a business card, says PaperCut on it. And if you have problems, call the IT support center, not me. No, that's actually what it said. It does have the phone number on for assistance. Yeah. Knew he was going to do something like that. But yeah, a big poster. Remember when we did the Equitrack, you had the big poster with instructions on how to associate your badge and all that stuff. We've got that generated as well. We're making some changes just to the grammar and spelling, that kind of stuff, but the sign is made. When we show up at your site, we're going to have that stuff with us. So hopefully between Google Docs that we can share out with everybody with instructions, with signage there, with stickers on the printer, that it will be very evident that printer will now need to be used with the PaperCut driver instead of the other. You don't have that yet, but I'm getting it for you, I promise.
Joel, I can't say this correctly in like the right IT terms, but I think the biggest problem that our site faced was the people not having the correct login. You know how I had to go in and change. You know how I was giving everyone names. I like to give people names on their button.
So the accounts that are made locally on the computers need to match up with the username. So like if you make your self-service, right? My name is Joel Bach, but my account name is J N Bach. So if it's anything other than J N Bach on the machine, if I call it like super handsome guy, I'm typically won't know who I am. So it has to be J N Bach.
I'll know who he is, but nobody else.
And it doesn't have to be admin because students can print as well. We can accommodate that. No, you're good. But the thing that happens is when we launch, when the session starts and PaperCut reaches out and goes, "Who are you?" If it doesn't match up, it just goes, "Okay, all right, tough cookies," and shuts itself down, and that's that. So
had I had that prepared when you guys got there, it would have been smooth because I had to go back to almost every single staff member and because I didn't have them create the accounts the right way the first time. And so that day, I literally had to sit there and help them, walk them through so that everybody had the correct sign in. So I would just suggest before they come out, that you make sure everyone logs in using their.
It sure helps, and you can't stop your end users from changing the name as well. I mean, they can go in and change their accounts. They can make them be a self-service and then change the name. And if they've done that, they'll run into the same problems. It's fairly easy to rectify, but it's just a hassle for you at the site to have to do that manually.
Right. I just thought people would want to know ahead
Yes,
of time.
thank you.
That was one thing we ran into as well. It was kind of like,
So you're saying the computer has to have the username
yeah.
same?
So
So like every PC that I have has to have
PCs are.
No, 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 no,
no, no, no,
Sorry,
no.
we're speaking specifically to Macs.
I
so-
think you're sure, like,
Yep.
I've got so many PCs.
You shouldn't be using non-AD accounts on PCs anyway, right?
You can't. So you're-
Well, so the one they log in, yeah, but the actual name of the machine might be different than.
Name of the machine doesn't matter. It's the name of the account that they're using. Yes, it is the account.
And we'll clean that up in the documentation. We'll work with you guys. We're trying to dial in a better process to help streamline that, because we know that some of those accounts may have, been created manually without a middle initial and things like that. And we're gonna try and minimize how much gets hosed up and how we can help.
Just
clean it.
another reason that using that create an admin account based on AD credential policy is very, very important to making everything else work other than just logging into the account. If logging into the account was the only thing we needed, you could name it whatever you wanted. But that is just another reason that using that policy to create these accounts is very, very important. Yes.
So, for shared computers, like a computer lab or a workroom, if there's not an admin account created on there through self-service, did you say student will also work? Joel? I'm sorry, I didn't-
Yes.
Student will, but that's going to be one of the
Yes,
only.
Student will work. So
Okay.
service accounts, and then we have a setting in there, like if students locally on the machine prints, authenticate every time. And so little Johnny puts in his information and he prints. The next time Susie sits down, she has to authenticate as well.
Okay, so
But there
there's
is,
gonna
but
be a
there is a
pop-up.
print
Yeah.
of those Conicas as well. And you can track that. You can tell the system, no, sorry, Johnny doesn't get to print if you so desire. But student would be a resource accountant in this case.
Okay.
And yes, you log in with that, nothing changes, and Papercut just goes, who are you? Every single time that they try to print. They put in their AD credentials, the s.dcsd or.
Yeah.
And, they're living.
To get down to the meat of it, it's a licensing thing. We pay for license. I know you've got questions about these accounts.
The paperwork was brought up, so, I mean, talking about aging equipment, our Konica Minolta printers are in that classification.
So
That-
Konica Minolta is we still have a support contract with Konica Minolta. They're required to come repair those and maintain them. And if they cannot repair it to satisfaction, we'll work with Mike Bakke, who will work with Konica Minolta to get replacement devices out there. So they've already gone out, and other companies and other places where they're getting those devices off lease, they've put them into some of our buildings. So if you're having issues, let us know. We'll work with Mike Bakke. We'll get it fixed, Jim.
I've had that problem, and it was like pulling teeth.
It shouldn't be, so,
My 950 replaced, it took 2 months.
yeah, it shouldn't be,
And
so
they
if you have
gave me
more
a
than,
650,
yeah, let us know.
and it's not the same performance machine, and I have constant problems, and they come out and tweak it a little bit, and then 3 days later, they're back out working on it again. And to me, that is not doing my users service.
No, absolutely. We completely agree with you. And we will help be that vehicle to carry that to Mike Bakke so that he can hammer on them and hold them accountable for the contract.
But
So,
it's multi-million dollars. So let's replace printers again. It's multi-million dollars to go through and replace all of them. So there'll be something probably in a future, this bond possibly, that if that passes, possibly could be part, I don't know, but it is a money thing where it's to replace them. We don't have money to be putting in new printers this year, and that's why it's
And
delayed.
I'm just getting a little frustrated at the amount of work I have to put in to get a service call completed correctly 3 or 4 times before they decide, well, maybe we should put a part in this. Rather than come out and go, oh, it seems to work for the 2 pages I print.
Keep us in the loop with that, so Leah, let me know on that, Jim, and I'll work with you in that, and we'll escalate it. Damien is our main contact, and he is the service manager, that he's been put on notice that we aren't very happy with what's been going on, and so they've definitely changed what they're doing. So I think we're on a better place right now this year than the past couple of weeks. But let me know if that's ongoing, and I'll work with you and all my schools. Each of us will do that.
Yeah.
We'll work with you guys and make sure that we'll take the burden on that.
we'll take it back to Mike Bakke today to say he needs to make sure that they are out there resolving it to the satisfaction of the school, not to the satisfaction of the technician.
That will be cool. So that's part of their contract with, they're making good money doing it, with the click counts and also the servicing of them. So, they took the contract on, so they need to follow through with their contract.
Any other questions? Yes.
I don't mean to open up a can of worms, but is there a company line I could give my principal and staff about standalone like HP printers? I know years ago, we were told or discouraged to continue purchasing them, which that's what I've been telling them because I want them to go away, and we haven't replaced ones that have died, is that still the company?
That's still the company line because it's more expensive. It's more expensive to use a building, and right now we can't give you that information, but eventually we will, and it's pretty awesome. Joel's already shown me some glimpses of that, and we're gonna be able to clearly show your teachers and your principal that it's costing you 5 to 6 cents a page to print on the HPs, and it's costing you less than a penny on the Konica Minoltas. And when the teachers are saying, well, we need these resources for our classroom, it's like, well, if you print to the Konica Minolta, I'd have a bigger budget to spend on those resources you want for your classroom. Or do you really need to print, for God's sake?
Yeah.
Let's have those conversations. So, but yeah.
How much money does that toner for those HPs cost over the course of a year? A lot.
And that's, I mean, that's what I've been telling them over years, and then, I just take a big wad of unclaimed paper, so not only are they printing there, but then they're not claiming them, so I just like threw that at my principal the other day, I'm like, I can't, deal with
Which means that they didn't claim it there, but they probably then said, oh crud, where did I print it? So they just printed it again to somewhere else. So then you have duplicate and triplicate of garbage. Yeah.
So the software has a little thing
Yes.
at the top corner, and it shows immediately as soon as the software is on dollars. And it's so funny because everyone's like, oh wait, can I print this? Am I being charged? So immediately it completely changed their outlook, just seeing that it's gonna count the dollar amount of their print job.
And it also, for those of you that have sustainability programs in your schools, it has great reporting because it also tells you how many trees you've killed, and how much CO2 you've wasted, and how many kilowatts of energy, I think, right, Joel?
How many hours you could fire up a 60-watt light bulb with the energy you've expended on printing.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool information for your students as you're doing sustainability initiatives in your buildings. Let's engage those teams in this printing conversation. So necessarily you don't have to fight that fight all the time. Let's bring the students into the conversation and see if that can say, hey, Mrs. Smith, do we really have to print that? Because you just killed a bunch of trees by doing that. So, just helping you play the cards.
Should I drop the numbers?
Yeah, throw it out there.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Come up here to the
Yeah,
speaker,
plug it
though.
in. Let's
Come
see
up here
it.
to
Can we
the-
see it? Can we see it?
Come up here to the speaker, though.
All right, so this, excuse me, so in 21 days across the district, and this only represents probably 40% of our print footprint right now. We've killed 40 trees. We've created 4,286 kilograms of CO2, and we've run a 60-watt light bulb for 268,373 hours. And that represents about 40% of the district's print footprint.
Wow. So it's pretty cool. That information is right on the dashboard right there for you. And so when we do have the dollar amounts in there, you'll be able to see that. The schools will be able to see that. When we bring in the HPs, we'll have that part of the calculation as well. So it's going to give you that comprehensive view, which is what our administration is in your buildings have been asking for, so that you guys can have those conversations at a building level.
At the initial rollout, you're going to see the little box like Christina's missing with the dollar amount on it. It's going to stay zero because we haven't input the back end values to where it can calculate that yet. But you'll see that it's there, and you will definitely get some questions about it.
It's a good warning shot.
And there will be numbers attached to it later.
Yeah.
We're
watching.
And again, say that. We are not going to be the district print police. That is not what we're going to do. I've had many people concerned about that. We're going to give you the opportunity to be the policeman if you want to. But it's totally going to be up to your site in how you want to. If you want to rule it with an iron fist, like Miss Green does at her site, yeah, that is your prerogative, and we will give you big kudos for that. If not, that's not why we're doing it. I just want to make sure that it's known. We're not trying to run this for you. We're trying to give you the data to make the best decision for yourself.
Yep.
So.
Another just printer question, it's probably not to you, Eric. When Janet changed all the IP addresses, is there any way to, like when I reimage new machines, the new printer IP addresses are not on that image? Is there a way to connect that? Because what I've been doing is just going in and manually.
I will defer to Joel, my printer
Joel.
expert.
You definitely should be able to do that.
Okay.
If for
Maybe
some
I can talk
reason,
to you privately.
if for some reason your printers aren't in Casper for you to add to a policy, you can add those in. They may already be there. So if you were to, I'm sorry?
Maybe I don't know that.
Fair enough. So I absolutely, like when we're done here, come grab me.
Just send your email to superhandsomeguy@DCSD.
Yeah, there you go. That's the guy. And on that note, anybody has any more questions, paper cut related, email, phone call, whatever, get in touch with me. I'll be happy to answer what I can. And if I don't know the answer, I know the right people to help me be able to get it for you. So don't feel like you're in the dark. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
And what you've all been waiting for. iPad 2, iPad mini first gens, they cannot run anything past iOS 9.3.5. They're very old. Most of them are 5-6 years old at least. And we have made the decision that as of June 30th, these iPads will no longer be managed in the JSS. We're not going to help you with them anymore. They will not be managed. We will attempt to recover any of your paid apps that are on them prior to deleting them out of the JSS. So what that basically means is we'll pull back on the scoping of apps to those iPads, and we have an easy method to do that. Not really ready to talk about that today, but there is a method to get all your paid apps off the iPad without you guys really having to do anything. Likely we'll be doing some other stuff regarding these iPads so that we have the ability to do some reporting on the serial numbers, remove them from Apple's device enrollment program, that sort of thing, prior to deleting them. If you want to know how many iPad 2s and how many iPad mini first generations there are at your site, you can do what this screenshot here suggests, is go into your mobile device and do an advanced search, and you click add and you choose the criteria of model identifier, and then the operator is like. So we're not looking for is, but rather is like. If you look for model identifier is like iPad 2, you will see both of these devices. The iPad minis and the iPad 2s show up in a search, and then you can view that list. You can export that list, whatever you want to do. But right now we have 6,348 of these district-wide. Some of you have hundreds, some of you have less than that. These devices cannot be counted on for next school year. They will not be managed. Does anybody have questions regarding that?
We aren't 100% sure what we're going to be able to allow you to do with these devices. We know we're not going to be able to manage them, but we're not going to come in the middle of the night and dark close and rip them out of your cabinets and things like that. Quite yet. No, just kidding. That's not our plan. We're trying to work through what we can do. We need to make sure with our security analyst that he's okay with us running this older OS and still feeling comfortable that these are secure devices to have on our network. That's always our ultimate concern, is to make sure that we are not exposing ourselves to anything nefarious. So we want to make sure that that's okay. And then we're looking, Curtis and Evan and the STIP team and I were working through a couple different scenarios on what we might be able to do with these devices for you. We realize that this is a double whammy. This is garbage. This feels really bad, saying, hey, you're not getting any rotation money next year and your iPad 2s are bricks. We feel terrible about this. This is not where we want to be as a system. The STIP team wants to work with you to help you try and look at alternate solutions and alternate pathways. I had a great conversation, Betsy's not here today, but I had a great conversation at Mammoth Heights to get around some of these challenges. They're moving forward next year with BYOD for their 6th graders. And they're gonna ask parents to send in devices, whoever's parents can, because Sierra Middle School that they feed into rolled out BYOD this year. So now that parent's just gonna buy a device a year early for them. So it's absolutely an option. We have a lot of technology in our community that we can take advantage of. Those middle schools that have already rolled forward with it, I think Jeff can speak to that it's been amazing at Sagewood. And Ponderosa is now inheriting the benefit of those kids having devices from Sagewood. They're now going up to Ponderosa, so now Ponderosa has more device capability and things like that. So that is definitely an option to look at and to consider, but definitely talk to the STIPs. Let us know if you want to have a conversation about how are we going to make it through slippery slope, because this is not where we want to be, but unfortunately it's where we are. So let's make the best of it. We're in it together. We're not going to leave you hanging. We're not going to, just rip stuff out of your hands and things like that. But we know it's going to be bumpy for you all. And none of us feel good about it, including Gautam, our CTO, but you all know what the budget looks like for the district. So it's not just IT, it's across the whole system where we're at. Any questions on iPads? Yes.
Does the issue with the paid apps have to be resolved before June 30th, or is there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to make sure that we can recover those and put those back into your accounts so that we don't lose any of those paid apps.
And then
we
you
feel like we have a
can
good plan for that.
Yeah, you should have access to it. So the difference would be is if you purchased a paid app that's no longer really being updated or supported, or maybe it's actually even left the App Store. We've had a few of those, not very many. We have to look at that differently. We cannot continue to host apps that are no longer in the App Store. So if you purchased an app back in 2012 and the last update was 2012 and now it's not in the app catalog anymore, we will not be hosting that app for your newer iPads. So that's important to know. But we do want to retract all those numbers, because if you have, say, 150 iPad 2s and you pushed a paid app that's worth $4 per device or per deployment, and then we end up deleting all those iPad 2s, you just lost that app, in that count, that number. So we want to just get that app off of those iPads, and it's just a matter of doing some simple scoping that we can retract those apps so they're no longer deployed to the iPad, and then we'll have access to them if you have newer devices, and we can look at deploying that app elsewhere.
Do you have any kind of timeline for what are possibilities of using the iPad 2?
Trying to get that figured out in the next couple weeks.
So yeah.
So we can give you guys a clear pathway as soon as possible, because we know that is going to factor into some decisions that you guys are making as a building. So
I really wanted to have a timeline before this meeting started, but there's just a couple of things that are outstanding that I'm not able to act on.
Two things. SPED had a grant.
Yes.
What happens with all those? Because they're all iPad 2s.
Right.
What happens?
So SPED's grant got them 570 iPad 2s, and those have probably mostly made their way into school inventory, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, because if I look at SPED's site in particular, they have maybe 160 iPads in their site. So yeah, a lot of those are like yours would be TRHS-SSN or -mod needs or something like that. And those are all going to be out of the JSS as of June 30th. And that's the bigger concern that we have, is that the SPED app catalog paid apps are very expensive at times. You can look at an app being in the hundreds of dollars. So we want to make sure we recover all of those apps before getting rid of those devices, because if we get rid of them first, we can't get that copy of the app back, or that that number.
Another consideration, third-party vendors, can these be sold?
that's one of the considerations that we're trying to look at and see systemically, how can that happen? Currently, strategic sourcing and the finance office aren't allowing that. But this is a special case, and we're trying to figure out, is this a possibility? And part of the challenge that we want to try and address and make sure that we have solid is that the money from the sale goes back to you as a building, not to the general fund of the district.
That's the current situation.
So that's what we have to make sure is solid before we roll that as a potential option.
All right, so I have our ducks in a row in terms of what Curtis and I have done for iPad management. We have our numbers. We have everything ready to go if the possibility is that we can actually combine all 6,348 devices into one pallet's worth and have one third party come in and buy them all. I can then turn around and take that and know exactly what everybody's turned in, and then they'll get devices back, but it's going to be a fraction of the value. It's probably at least
like $35 an iPad.
Yeah, but I mean, when you
It's better that we get a little bit of
Yeah.
money, because
Understood.
Our sped department is already so upset that these are going away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't have money in my budget
Right.
to replace them.
Totally understand. So
And they're like, so what do we do?
yeah.
And that's a problem with one-time grants, when they get big funding for a huge thing, and then there's never anything to follow up with it. Because those are really old. Those were bought right when they first came out. So that's a very old grant.
those were the first iPads in the district were SPED iPads. So, yes.
So this makes me nervous wanting to purchase any kind of iPad for replenishing. Are we gonna have this issue in 10 more years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely. You'll have this issue with any device. It's not just iPads. It's
Chromebooks, same
it's
thing.
Chromebooks. I mean, Chromebooks, if you can get 5 years out of them, That's great. I mean, I think the Dells, you'll see them going a little longer than what the Samsungs have done. But there's, even right now with the Samsungs, there is an OS limitation. At some point, Chrome will no longer, you know, the older OS that runs on these older Chromebooks will be in the, kind of in the same place where these are. And the Macs are the same way. We have Macs that are not capable of running what we call current OS. And I'm going to address that in a couple more slides. Dell's, same thing. I mean, right now, our inventory this year, and I'll address this as well, all the Dells will run our current version of Windows 10. Will it run smoothly? Great user experience, not on the older stuff. It will run, but it will take a while to log in, to launch an app, to run a browser, etc. I mean, that's hardware. I mean, that's automobiles. That's
and that's why we're in a double whammy, because that's why we always have those rotation dollars to help supplement that as we continue to roll forward and have to cycle devices out of the system. This is the double whammy year of a perfect storm of badness. We have a lot of iPad 2s in the fleet that we can't manage anymore and possibly can't support, and we have no rotation dollars to help you supplement and replace those devices. So this is not where we want to be as a system, but it is where we are.
So we'll still have like internet and a camera that we could.
Possibly.
Okay.
Possibly, yes. That may be ultimately what those devices boil down to.
Best case.
As long as you can charge it. Yeah. So
yes.
You just don't buy an iPad mini right now. You know, talk to your STIPs or whomever else. I mean, the iPad that they offer, whatever the price is, it's solid. But the mini it's like, are they going to replace it? Is that going to be a new one? So just talk to someone so you don't get buying at the end of the life cycle of any of the products.
And we work with the vendors to try and get as much information as they'll give us and forecast what the future might look like, but sometimes they hold that close to the vest and they don't give us any additional information. So
with regard to Apple, usually they start giving us a glimpse into what their models are going to look like, you know, around May. So whether you spend money tomorrow or you spend money in May after you know what's coming out and what the pricing is going to be. I mean, what was it? A year ago, they released the 5th gen iPad 32 gig, and they said a 10-pack was $2,940. I mean, that was the lowest price we'd ever seen. And there's rumors out that there's going to be another lower price, but we don't know about that. Our Apple reps can't tell us anything about that because they're not told what's coming around the corner until probably the day before it's coming around the corner. So keeping that in mind. Christine, you had a question?
Sorry, I have two. What is that what, if we purchase right now an iPad, is it 5th generation?
Yes, so if you purchased an iPad right now, it would be a 5th generation 32 gig. Or like Curtis said, the minis are available, but I think he's kind of discouraging anyone from looking at iPad minis.
We just need a few more for actually the department.
Okay.
But I want to make sure I'm getting the best one right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and then my other question is similar. Our school has so many of the old Mac desktops.
Mm-hmm.
And teachers do not want to give them up because they can't get anything, but they're so slow and they're just tragic.
Yeah.
So my question is, as a district, are we able to do the same thing where we can turn them in somewhere and recoup a little bit of money for them? Or, and if so, is that done on a site basis, or do we just start sending them back to you guys?
We've been just flat out recycling old iMacs. You know, so you're talking probably early 2009 Blackback. They run 10.9 okay, which is no longer a supported OS in the district.
Right.
And they have like 2 gigs of RAM and maybe a 500 gig drive. Everything's slow. They can't run iMovie. They can't run anything anymore other than they can launch a browser. And
then they come to me, they're frustrated.
Sure.
Over and over, I mean, this is literally the best it's going to get.
But it's an early 2009 iMac. I mean, it is 9 years old.
Okay, so if we do want to start getting rid of recycling, we just go through
Yeah,
that
just
process?
you would just recycle them. I mean, we have to look at what's in the JSS and what old devices run better than, you know, current operating system. Maybe those really old ones still run 10.9. We're probably not going to be managing those in the JSS anymore either. I mean, we're incurring all these licensing costs per device per year that we have to factor in and holding on to this stuff. If we're not going to keep it current, if we can't, we shouldn't be paying to manage it. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to leave the school. Security, network, that type of thing, if there's some sort of limitation of that device, it's no longer patched, and there's a critical patch like the Spectre vulnerability and that sort of thing that didn't go out to these machines because they don't have a new enough operating system, we don't want them on the network. And at some point, somebody's going to come and say, okay, if this machine is not capable of running current OS, it needs to be sent in. We're not at that point yet, but it's very possible that the early 2009 iMacs and any white MacBook, for example, is probably going to be on that list. The 2008, 2007 MacBooks, those should also be recycled or considered for recycling this summer.
So we have a lot of the white ones still that we have in the classroom. The classroom teachers just use, they have like 5 or 6 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, they don't want to give them up, but you're saying at some point they may have to for.
Yes.
Yeah.
For security purposes.
Right,
Yeah.
no, and that's, I
Yeah.
wanted, so that will come out later.
Yeah, and when we get to that point, we'll definitely communicate it well in advance. We'll have a window of time to send those in and work with you guys to help. But, definitely have that conversation. Your STIP can help have that conversation out there. So they're not, beating down your door with pitchforks and torches. We'll take the heat on that one, but it's how we are as a system. And we realize it stinks for the classroom experience. So.
Kevin, you got another one?
Another question. Principals are told to use their money that they're saving for the rainy day, when the rainy day is here, and they're asking us, so if we could get that list sooner than later of the devices that we think should be removed out of our buildings, they're making decisions now, and they're spending their money fast.
That list is basically, I posted it a few times on our remote deployment and imaging Google Plus.
Really, what's really gotta go for security reasons?
Sure.
Well, yeah,
Yep.
I don't have that information, but I mean, I have to talk to network and security and say, what's the vulnerability? What's the risk of having these devices?
We'll work on getting that as soon as we can and publish that out there. Some of it's going to be existing data that we already have, and then we'll forecast it out as new as we can.
Because they're ready to spend their rainy day fund right now.
Well, knowing what I posted regarding, late 2009 and newer Apple hardware is capable of running the OS that we currently support, which is 10.11 LCAP and 10.12 Sierra. If it can't at least fit that category, if it's not late 2009 and capable of running the current OS, it is advisable that you turn it in, you recycle it.
10, 11 machines, where do they go?
Well,
I'm
that's
already at that point of looking towards
the 10.11. The 10.11 machines, if they're capable of running 10.11 but not 10.12.
right.
I did mention not too long ago that we will be supporting that at least through December of next year, and probably through the entire school year next year till it falls off. Kind of like what we've been soft supporting 10.9 right now. We don't want to, but for some reason people are in a situation where if they reimage one of those really old machines with 10.11, it just runs so poorly that they have to put 10.9 back on it somehow. We're not hosting a 10.9 image or a 10.10 image, but there's ways of restoring it back to the way they wanted it. It's going to be one of those things where Apple is kind of N+2. So when their new operating system comes out this coming October, they're going to support High Sierra and Sierra. They are not going to support LCAP at 10. However, it'll be October, so we may as well just carry through with anything that has LCAP at 10 on it. But that's going to be the bottom line through the rest of the next school year is LCAP. Nothing older.
And please keep in mind, there are always opportunities for security issues to come up that tie our hands. If the vendor won't patch that, and the security analysts determine that we are in a very, very vulnerable situation, we'll have to have a deeper conversation sooner rather than later, and we can't forecast that. That's the hard part, like the Spectre vulnerability. No one knew that was coming out. No one knows even if it's actually out in the wild, but it could possibly happen. Bless you. And where do we feel comfortable with accepting that risk or not? So that's always those conversations that we have to have with Nick and the network team and security and things like that as well, which makes it challenging it clouds up the crystal ball a lot.
So I'll make sure I will reiterate today on the remote deployment and imaging Google Plus page where we're at in terms of Mac OS. I will get that out. It's basically, it's going to be a repost, but it won't hurt to repost it. Anything else on, yes?
Mark, when you're talking about some of those other options, including the third-party vendors, is there anything that you would like us to tell our principals
Not yet.
that will help at a different level?
Yeah, not yet. We want to make sure that we iron it out and make sure that we're allowed to do it and make sure
Or
that,
the other options as well?
yeah, and make sure that the system's comfortable with charting down that path before we push that out in principal notes and potentially a district leadership meeting and things like that. So if you want to tell them that we're looking at options that might include this, that's kind of about all we have to say at this point. So good question.
So when we relicense this summer for Apple hardware and relicense the JSS, relicense Casper per device, we're going to have to make some choices at that moment before we get our quote. So that's going to be the quote's going to come out late April, May with the vendor, and we're going to have to tell them how many devices we will be moving forward with next year. And that's about the time that we're going to be warning you guys that we will not be managing. Of course, we've just warned you about iPad 2s and iPad minis, but probably early 2009 and older Apple devices will make that list as well. We don't want to pay the annual licensing cost per device on legacy equipment that, I mean, could technically still be in the classroom. We just don't want to be managing it because the OS is not updatable. They are not releasing anything for it. They are not designing anything for it other than maybe iTunes, which never goes away. But yeah, so that I think that's hopefully answers everything. I need to move on to another slide. With regard to TestNav and Pearson, this kind of tackles the Mac category of OS X computers. There were policies that were out there already from last year. I replaced the package, the TestNav package, with the new version. So if you had a policy at your site that was installing TestNav and it is scoped to all the same devices that you want the new version on, just go to the policy, click on the log, and then just do flush all, and it will install the newer TestNav version on all the devices. If you need help, if you don't have a policy, I'll help you. I'll create one. All I got to do is clone one of the ones that already exist and make it for your site. It's not a problem. But if you do need help with a policy, I probably won't scope it for you unless you indicate in advance where you want it. I'll probably create the policy for you, then disable it, and then send you a link to the policy, have you scope it, and then enable it at your site. And then I can help you with those two steps as well if you need help. But this is basically for Macs. For Chromebooks, the really cool thing is that it just updated. It's at the login window. There's that apps folder down at the bottom left. The TestNav app is in there. It is not scoped by OU. It is scoped by all Douglas County.
Whole domain. Every Chromebook in the domain is going to get TestNav.
Yeah. So any Chromebook, you can just use it. If for whatever reason you launch that and something's weird about it, I think the fastest response to that is just to wipe your Chromebook and bring it back in, because something's not happening at a level that we need it to for that app to appear. But usually, you know, the Chromebooks pretty much update themselves. The app updates itself, that type of thing.
And we know this slide has a lot of words on it. The calendar event has the link to the slide deck, so you can read this at your leisure.
Yeah. But this is all kind of about managing it in the Mac domain. Those of you who have Windows devices, we do have the MSI for TestNav as well. And you'll work directly with Bobby. Bobby's going to be doing a meeting with secondary CRTs in supporting, like with Windows imaging and TestNav and some of the other deployments that will be either in Software Center or sent directly out to machines. Does anybody have any more questions on deploying TestNav with Macs? Yes.
Not Mac, sorry.
Oh.
Chromebook question. You had mentioned that Samsung have an OS limitation. Are they risky to use for testing for Android, or are they okay?
They're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the limitation is what, 63? They don't go higher than, I think, 62 or 63, but Pearson supports that OS for now.
Okay.
So I think we're good for this testing
Yeah, I was
season.
to say that we'll get through this test cycle.
And Olga, you've got the email regarding iPads and TestNav, and we know where we're at there. So the calendar is basically, we start off Monday, the 26th, doing English language arts and math. And then co-alt will also start the 26th. And then the following Monday, actually, no, 2 Mondays after the 9th is when we kick off science and social studies. And everything is staggered, but it all ends on February or April 28th. So this is the entire schedule.
So,
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll jump in that last point.
Okay.
So we have a limited number of resources to help support during testing, and there's a lot that this team has to do to support that. So what we're asking during this testing window is we're going to ask you to hold off on any new iPad app scoping during the testing window because we don't have enough resources to successfully do both. And unfortunately, it stinks for all of us, but testing has to take the priority. And so we've got to hunker down with the testing team and spend a month making sure that you guys can test your kids as quickly and efficiently as possible. So we're just asking a solid from you guys if you can help us out with that, and we won't be doing any iOS app support scoping requests during the duration of the testing. So get all those in before the end of March. I know it's hard to predict, and I know lots of things shift at the last second, and sometimes you don't get a warning. So we just don't have the resources, unfortunately, to manage both of those worlds. So.
And also keeping in mind that 66% of all of our inventory is pretty much obsolete iPads. So do we want to really apply a lot of energy to getting a whole bunch of apps on them right now? I don't know. Keep that thought in mind, if you don't mind.
And just qualify that, getting them on now, I mean, they're not going to stay on there come this period, so it's not like, hey, if I act now, these will have these apps. No, that's not the case.
So some of you guys have a Mac Mini at your site. So if I think the magic number was around 200, 250 Macs or more in someone's inventory, you would get a local Mac Mini distribution point. What that was designed to do is take the impact and stress off of having to get everything from the data center. So if you have one of those Mac Minis at your site, you will not be part of the imaging schedule this year. That means you can pretty much image at will at your site. However, I will say to everybody in this building, Mac or PC, do not image more than 15 machines at a time. Do not mix them. If you're doing PCs, do 15 PCs max until it's done. If you're imaging Macs, do 15 Macs. Do not do 6 PCs and 9 Macs at a time. It just, there's a block copy from one and there's not from the other, and it kind of messes with packets over the network. So do them separately. So those of you who do not have a distribution point at your site, that means you have a lower Mac count, and it is pretty much determined that you could probably get it done in a week, and you're going to have to be sharing those weeks with other people in your feeder area. Because you guys everyone in a feeder area comes from the same distribution point at the data center. So we'll have to be kind of mindful of one another. And in years past, we've used the feeder area Google group and sent that out. And if people switching weeks, I'm not going to do it alphabetically this year. Never again.
That's my parting gift to Melissa Tafoya. So
yeah, I'm not going to do it.
You're not going to have 4th of July week, even though you're not going to be here. So
the L's and the M's always fell on 4th of July, no matter what. And so
we're going to shake it up this year, get all funky. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We're going to spin a wheel.
So, and we've had a couple of questions regarding the new Macs that people are buying right now. So 2007 or later, they're going to ship with High Sierra.
2017.
17, yes, thank you. 2017 or later. Yeah, they're going to ship with High Sierra. And we want to reimage these computers. Presently, we want to reimage them back down to Sierra because we can. It's a little involved, and putting together a slide deck or a movie and whatnot. I already worked on it a couple months ago, and it was determined that that was a little bit much for especially people that don't do this full time, that are teaching an elementary school classroom and have to go through all these steps. So what we would ask is that if you guys are going to be purchasing any of these, it's probably the MacBook Airs that are going to come out. I think there's a school that contacted me yesterday saying, hey, we're going to buy 13. You would want to contact us ahead of time, and we would want to come out to your site and help you with this. I don't think there's going to be a lot of purchasing. It's not like we're going to be dealing with hundreds of devices this year, which is kind of a relief. But for now, we want them back down to 10.12.6. High Sierra is not something that we can image the same way. It's going to be entirely different when we do it. And Curtis has been working on it a lot. He's been very vigilant with some different open source types tool sets to use, but we haven't really settled on one thing that's going to work for us in the best, most easiest way. So if you're buying these devices, work with us, give us a heads up in advance notice, and I'll do everything I can to help. Does anybody have any questions on that? Yes, Debbie.
So we don't need to re-image unless there's a specific, like we're switching from one teacher to another, or.
Right.
No, that's a great point.
If
you don't need to, don't.
If you're at 10.9 or 10.10, yes, you do. Especially if it's a newer machine, like a 2012 MacBook Pro, which is what a lot of the teachers have. If they're still running 10.9 or 10.10, those should be re-imaged to make sure that they have everything. But if you're at 10.11 or above, yeah, there's no need to re-image. They're going to get patched. Even over the summer, the Macs will get patched if people take them home. They will still be checking in when they're on a network from somewhere, and they will be told to, hey, high priority patch, you've got to do this kind of thing, and they'll get notifications. And we'll want to probably tell them, don't be scared if a notification window pops up saying that you need to update your iTunes or something. Just do it. It's not a big deal. But yeah, there's no need to re-image everything. And if you guys in the labs don't want to re-image, but you just want to clean things up, if you have like a lab's worth of iMacs that have periods 1 through 8 on them or something like that, and they all have Creative Cloud running on them. Oh, I didn't put that in the notes. I got to tell you about Creative Cloud. This is great. We can actually just clean up the user accounts, not even recreate them, but just identify the folders where things are saved and where things are cached, browser history, all that stuff, and we can just burn it out. And it doesn't require re-imaging. Really fast with Adobe Creative Cloud. This is the last year that will Creative Cloud can be device assignable. In 2019, it will no longer be device assignable. You have to assign it to a user account, so like an email account. So my guess would be that we're going to try and stay on Creative Cloud 2018 for as long as we can. And I think we will take 2018 all the way through next school year and avoid 2019 just because of our needs in terms of device assignment as opposed to user assignment. Okay, any questions on that? Yes, Jim.
Currently have Creative Cloud 2017, want to upgrade 2018 without affecting work on several.
You want to upgrade from 2017 to 2018?
EC 2018.
Does he have a use case for moving to it mid-year?
The policy is on 2018, all the current machines at 2017. How do we migrate to 2018? Work students have done, we not do that.
Is that something he wants to do mid-year, though?
That's something he asked me to ask.
Really?
Yeah. Does he have a use case for moving to 2018 other than it's just another model year?
I didn't go into the
Okay.
details of his process.
Yeah. Usually with Adobe Creative Cloud, you want to start fresh with a new machine. So you would be re-imaging machines. Mid-year, it's just probably not worth it. I would advise against it.
Didn't you just change what was being delivered for 2017, 2018 for the policy that was done today or yesterday? Same policy installed 2018, this current machines at 2017. I was not notified, he was not notified that there was a change being made that now he's got a machine that needs to be reimaged. So he reimaged it. He's got 2018 on that, 2017 on the rest of the file.
I can get you back to 2017.
It's still, why weren't we notified that that was happening?
I'll have to check the notes. I believe you were. I believe I sent something out about us hosting 2018.
I don't remember.
I'll see if I can.
That was just brought to me as like, how come I've got 2018 on this?
Well, I think what happened is you probably had a machine that had to go into the shop and get repaired, and you brought it back and you put Adobe Creative Cloud on it, and now one machine has 2018 and the rest of them have 2017.
Right. I mean, that's just trying to keep this flat.
Sure.
I can get that machine back to 2017. I'll help you with that.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure the communication happens. That's the last thing we want is you guys to not know of any changes that are happening to the environment that hamstring you with your teachers. So we'll make sure the communications happen. And if they don't, let us know and we'll tighten that up. Mhm.
So this last thing I wanted to talk about is the wireless 15 accounts. This year, this beginning of the school year, Curtis developed a configuration profile, worked with the network team to get a new account out there on all managed Macs and iPads. So it's the secure wireless account that is now used to authenticate at the machine level, the computer level, not the user level. And we've seen some trouble with it, and I think where the trouble might be originating is that we had these student user DMGs that in years past people were trained to, when you're creating your user DMG, to make the doc exactly the way you want kids to see it and have different bookmarks and all that. We had you building the wireless profile in using a wireless 15 account. Now that we're deploying through configuration profile wireless authentication, we basically want to tell everybody we've got to, this year, if you're going to reimage machines, we've got to get rid of what's in your student user DMG relative to the wireless 15 account. So I'll be revisiting our old documentation. We're currently not hosting any documentation on it, but the old documentation talks about building this wireless 15 account in. We're going to just forego all of that and say don't build anything into wireless. So as you're building your student user DMG, if you're going to build one for next year, or if you want to edit what you currently have, we just want to circumvent the whole idea of wireless. When you're building it on a new machine, we just want to have wireless turned off. So I'll get some notification out about that.
We're looking at similar opportunities for Chromebooks as well, so we can manage it with the secure wireless account. If you borrow the Arduino boards from the STIP team to enroll all of your Chromebooks and things like that, I'm baking in the secure wireless, but we have to address the other 25,000 Chromebooks we have in the system that don't have that. So
yeah,
Just a few.
yeah, just a few. I'm getting the onesie twos. Yeah, we're at 27,000 Chromebooks in the district, so it's a pretty crazy number.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Just to remind everybody, as soon as you add a user account that is like create your local admin account, like for a staff member, they no longer have the secure wireless account running because we expect that staff member to join wireless as themselves. So if it's not a staff assigned machine, if it's just something for kids, for students, they will get the secure wireless profile, and it works on any user that gets created until that device gets associated to a staff member in inventory, which is part of what that create your admin account does. And then the configuration profile falls off and the staff member needs to join wireless themselves just that one time. And Bobby wanted me to talk about Windows OS. Build 1709 will be in use by summer. Reimaging is not required. The patching will take care of that. We do have scheduled weekly reboots.
We will be having scheduled weekly reboots. We're going to send out more communication about this, but this is just a heads up for you all.
We're going to have it scheduled for Thursdays after hours. We're going to ask that PCs remain powered on at the login screen, probably plugged in to Ethernet. I mean, I haven't really verified that, but my guess is if it's a laptop, it's at the login screen, it's not going to have a connection to wireless at this point. And after the restart, users will see a configuring window screen for at times 5 to 10 minutes. Right now, what we've seen is it takes longer because there's more updates in queue for that machine. But once we get into this rhythm of this process, the patches and updates will be more current, therefore it will take less time. I think Kim Harhai asked about Optiplex 790 machines, Latitude 5430, 5440. Legacy devices are still supported for Windows 10. The experience on them, again, is not going to be all that great, but they'll still work. Does anybody have any questions regarding that?
And on the weekly reboots, if there is a teacher that's still at work when that schedule, we're looking at, 8 o'clock at night or whatever, but there's someone still working, they'll be prompted and say, hey, this reboot is about to happen. They can cancel out of that and continue working. So it's not just automatically going to boot them out, reboot the machine and things like that. So they'll have that opportunity. This will not affect folks that bring their computer home on Thursdays. They won't get the patch at that point. They'll get the next time they're back on the network.
Is this going now, or is this gonna be?
It's
Coming
going
very
to be
soon.
coming soon. So we're working on the final communication and documentation to send out to you. That will include the official start date of when this happens. But we just want to let you know that this is coming in the next few weeks. Just because we are out of patching in a lot of our PC environments and things like that. And so we've got to tighten up on that security because unfortunately you guys see the news and you see everything that's going on out there, and people are putting Bitcoin miners and web pages and all kinds of wild, crazy, fun stuff. So we've got to tighten some things up to reduce our vulnerabilities.
Any other questions? Yes, Les.
Not a way to configure every start in the middle of the night so that I can get to work, because it has been taking up upwards of 30 minutes for users to work on the computer.
I would work with Bobby. It is the restart is supposed to happen during the night. That's off hours. That's what we're attempting to accomplish. We want it to happen off hours so when the kids come in or the teachers come in early in the morning, it's all done. It's already been restarted. That's the whole objective of it. So.
But that's where we need your feedback. If the system isn't working as we've designed it, you need to let us know so that we can tweak and tune it with you guys to make it more efficient for you. Because there's no perfect way to do security.
Anything else?
No other updates. So I should have taken
Okay.
that slide out. So we got that. Just a reminder, the CRT website, crt.dcsdk12.org. We'll make sure communications and things get put up there. Also the Google Plus communities. We've got all the Google Plus communities out there and things like that. Doug's list, if you guys have equipment to trade, things like that. Help desk, put in your tickets for the help desk. Q&A time. Anything that we didn't talk about that you have burning questions about? But before we do get to that, I do want to say a huge thank you to my dear friend Melissa Tafoya, who's leaving the district next week. We'll be here next Thursday. Will be her last day. She's leaving education to enjoy some other Wednesday. Okay, so I think we've all benefited from Melissa's expertise and troubleshooting and things like that. So I just want to give Melissa a huge round of applause. She's going to be sorely missed. But Kevin's coming along well. And then when you get the other people signed for the other things I need to work with folks out at Legend, let me know. That we'll sort it out later. But other Q&A, questions y'all have? Concerns? Really? It's almost as much fun as the celebrations. Yeah, you're all shell-shocked. So
I want to make one little plug. Please, 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 when you guys are filling out tickets and you're printing them out on the box, there's a picture, there's a button that looks like a printer on the page in Help Desk. Please print using that button. I know it's a silly little minor thing. However, when we get 300 plus tickets a month, some people are doing print screen, and I get all your browser information and all that kind of stuff on top of the page. And some people are using the button and it prints it out all the way it should be printed. When I'm picking up these boxes and looking at them, if the information is in the same place on the ticket, it is very, very helpful to me. So yes, it is nitpicky. Yes, it is a minor thing, but I will ask again, please, please, please use the button that looks like a print.
for those of you online, I'll give you the short version of Eric. Use the print button on help desk tickets. Make him happy. Thank you.
I know you mentioned the phone tape
we had a bunch of them flood. There was nobody on our staff that unplugged them. It was the cleaning crews that come in.
Okay.
They put everything in the middle, including the phone, because it's attached to the computer, the table. Everything's in the middle, and then you have to wait for them to, whatever process they decide to clean, and eventually they'll get to it. So usually it's putting everything in the middle, then, they go through each pot and stuff. So it takes a long time for them to get through our school.
That's great feedback.
Even though we've asked them to leave them plugged in, I've asked them to leave computers plugged in, phones, everything.
The good news is our boss is also the chief operating officer who oversees that whole scene. So we have an in with that. So we'll definitely bring that up. That's great information that I don't think any of us have thought of, or so we'll definitely talk to.
None of us, it was.
Yeah.
We'll get antsy. Saw a whole bunch of phones over the summer not come back.
We'll talk to Gotham and have him talk to the O&M folks to make sure that when they're doing that, if there's.
Well, I think it's contract, it's not O&M, it's the-
No, I know, but they manage the contract, so they hire the contract and stuff, and they need to communicate to them on here's what I need you to do and to not do. Don't unplug the phone. Next. So good information. Thank you.
My other question is, with these PC updates, what do we do with laptops? I mean, I have laptop carts, I have laptops in rooms, I have laptops that are not always open and on, and there's not always enough network drops to plug them in
Yes.
on a Thursday.
Yep. So we'll take that back to Bobby so that we can shore up that communication to help support you guys, realizing that that is a challenge for you. And what's the most efficient way that you guys are not being impacted with workload, but also getting the security patches out there. Yeah. Other questions? Jimmy P, you got another question for me?
On the PC thing.
Yeah.
Why is it that in the last 6 months, I've never been able to force an update? I go to, the wheel and go to updates, it always fails. So even if I'm outside of the schedules or the reboot of Thursday night or whatever, and I go, how about do the update now? I can control it. I know no one's gonna use this machine for the next 30 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. It always fails.
Really?
Not once in a while, but always.
Consistently. Okay. I'll have Brian work with Bobby to loop back with you and figure out what the solution is to that, because that's a great problem that I didn't know we had.
Because if I can control
Yeah.
to a certain degree, then I know when it's gonna happen and if there's one available or not. I have my own little test lab at home and I know when PCs are getting delivered by Microsoft or
Sure.
whatever. And then I don't see anything happening on my PCs at school. I'm like, force it. And it never happens.
And it fails. Okay. Yeah. We'll make sure. Thanks for sharing that. We'll follow up on that and make sure that it's fixed for you and everybody else. So, anything else we have? Yes. No?
To know with those updates, if it's got it or not, like, is there any kind of, like on the PCs, like this last one that we had the room, most of them got it, some of them didn't, so I know if I did a restart, I would get it, but on the PCs, there's.
Since Bobby's not here, I'm going to defer to Joel to say if you have any thoughts. Okay. You were just actively listening. My bad. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we're playing this guessing game. Yep. We'll take that back to Bobby and make sure, see if we can find out a way to let you all know what's been patched and when, and yeah, so you're not chasing your tail for unnecessary reasons because you have that kind of free time. So. Okay. Okay, perfect. So we'll work with Josh on some documentation on that so we can send out to you all. Perfect. Thanks, Josh, for chiming in on. Appreciate it.
Same thing. Last update was done, but not what's pending.
Right. Yeah, and this is a whole process that we need to tighten up considerably on the Windows side, and that's what we're trying to put some efforts towards. So it's not going to be perfect first batch through, but we're going to get there. Anything else? Okay, well, we are close to the end of our time. Thank you guys for taking the time to come down and spend a little time with us. Hopefully we answered your questions and things like that. There are plenty of snacks over there, so please grab some snacks on your way out. We have another meeting coming up in May, I believe. We'll make sure we get that on the calendar and things like that. I'll polish up the recording for this one, and that'll be posted out on the CRT website as well. And I think there's any other questions and things like that, I think we got everything off the dot storming board. So thanks, y'all. Appreciate your time.